Hello and welcome to episode 129 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is January 28th, 2019. I am Rollo McFlugel, and with me is Slappy Jones 2, and we are both from McFlugel.com. Show notes page for this episode will be McFlugel.com/129. We'll post some links for some of the stuff we talk about, and also go there, or just go directly to LibertyMugs.com and buy some mugs there. And, you know, maybe there's a birthday coming up for a libertarian that you know. That's a perfect gift. Or a birthday of a statist that you know, and it would be a great way to make you not get invited to their next birthday party.
You don't want to go anyway.
No. So before I hand it over to Slappy to introduce our episode topic, I wanted to complain about something real quick. And I haven't talked to Slappy about this before.
No, so I don't know what this complaint's going to be.
Yeah. And you tell me if I'm being unfair or, you know, thinking too much into it. But did you see the story that they found this guy that's like responsible for an absurd amount of Wikipedia content?
No.
I forget what it was, but it was like for the edit, like an absurdly high, like a significant percentage of edits. And also he wrote like a ton of articles.
Okay.
I mean,
is
like
his name Rollo?
Million. Yeah. I mean, like millions of them for like, I forget what it was. Something like 10. I forget. But think of like 10% of the edits on Wikipedia.
That can't be true.
You know what? I read mostly headlines, so I did what you shouldn't be doing. But he's being presented, and let's take it for granted. Let's assume that it's true that he's just done an absurd amount of work and produced, like, because everyone uses Wikipedia. I mean, just think about before Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Which was life with the internet, and it had been life for the internet for a while, but like looking stuff up, it took a little bit more time and effort.
Well, Wikipedia, I believe now is like you can use that as a source, can't you?
I would hope so.
Like when I was in college, I remember that our teachers would say like you can't use Wikipedia.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
That's not a legitimate source. Like so you would go to the Wikipedia article and look for the sources and then go there, but
yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it's an incredible resource. And so this guy did all this stuff, all this time, all this work, all for free. And so how have I been seeing, and again, this is anecdotal on my part, but all of the reactions I've seen have been just like making fun of the way the guy looks. And it's like, all right, I get it. It's the internet, but this is why we can't have nice things. Because this guy does like incredible work. No one asks him to do it. He just spends his own time providing this incredible service to the rest of us. And the response is, oh, that's how I pictured this guy would look.
Well,
and like, you know, just
I don't know what he looks like, but a guy who's written 10% of the Wikipedia articles, I have an idea.
Right. But and it was a little bit, you know, a little bit more than that with it, and maybe it's just, and I realize that I think most people making those comments are just doing it in good fun.
Yeah, to have fun.
Yeah, but when you take like the aggregate of all that, and like this guy they just did this article about me, and then it's just like, oh,
my life's work.
Yeah, fat slob that hasn't seen the light of day, and I'm just making something up off the top of my head but it's like, man, that really stinks for that guy.
Yeah.
But who knows? And again, maybe I'm just overreacting, but it just kind of struck me as like, man, this guy does this incredible thing for the internet, and the internet thanks him by just
laughing at him,
mocking him. But again, it's the internet, so we have to expect these things. And maybe in the future, and I do this. I mean, it's so easy. It's social media. It is how incredibly easy it is on Twitter to see something that someone does, and you just like reply with mocking it.
No, that's why Twitter exists.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe try to have a little bit more humanity. And I'm saying that as a as for something to do myself. But then again, I don't want to make the internet not fun.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, fun. So that's what we're transitioning into. We're going to be the fun police.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
And I know our first two.
Speaking of police.
Yeah. Well. Oh yeah. Wasn't that's a man. That would be a good transition if I did that intentionally. But
yeah. So
why don't you use that instead of me making fun of someone, as I was going to do?
Yeah. So who would the fun police be in a free society?
Birdarchist and Car Campit.
Right. And who would be the actual police? What would we do with criminals in a free society? That's going to be the topic for today's discussion, which I think is a good one, and it's a tough one. A lot of ANCAPs get that question all the time. Like, what are you going to do? What if there's a guy raping and murdering? What are we going to do with him? If you have no prisons, how would that work? So, Rollo, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even. How do we want to start attacking this? By talking about some of the questions you get, or
sure. Well,
start from what happens when someone robs you.
Let's go with this. Right, you're talking to someone; they're hearing your ideas, and you know some of the ideas sound good to them, even though they don't want to admit it. But that's why they continue to ask more questions, because it's like, wow. Yeah, you're right. They could solve clean water with that. But what about this? But what about that? You know, you always get those questions. And one that will always come up is because I'm sure you've probably been asked these questions. For example, in Pennsylvania, there's a thing with private prisons. There's a couple private prisons, or they might be building another one or something. And the protests that go around the county seats or wherever when people feel like protesting. It's all about we can't have private prisons. And my response is always, why do we have any prisons that are the way they are, right? So what do you think of that? Like let's start there. What would you do when someone says, well, we need prisons, we got to keep bad guys off the streets?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is, like, do you think that the current system actually works? Yeah, it pulls people off the street, but recidivism rates are very high. So people come out, people commit a crime, and they go to prison, and they get released after they serve their time, and a lot of them end up committing a crime again. Whether, I don't know if it's normally the same type of crime, but
right.
It's I don't know the rate off the top of my head, but it's pretty high.
Well,
so that right there, I mean, if the goal of the justice system, what is the goal? What should a goal of a justice system be?
To lock people in cages.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, the goal you would think to me would be to keep, you know, you want to live in a safe society. You want to live in a society, you know, or you can at least be comfortable walking down your street, your privately owned street, or walking into a store. If I open a store, I can be confident that if someone steals my stuff, I can get my stuff back, or, you know, plus money, whatever.
Right. So a good justice system would be one that protects your rights.
I would say so.
Right. So how would they go about doing that? I off the top of my head, I'd say there's kind of three parts to that. One is that they make you whole. Another one would be they provide some sort of disincentive for crime. And I guess that's only two because I don't have a third one.
You're like, wait, who was it?
Or prevent.
Who was the politician from Texas who had like 3 points he was going to end and then he forgot them?
Is that Rick Perry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking something on the podcast I was listening to. They were talking about that, but yeah. So because I wanted to say like crime prevention, but that's basically the same thing as disincentivizing crime.
Yeah.
So two things. If you get if there's a crime made against you, then you want to be made whole. You want to have your property restored the best way it can be, because let's face it, if there's a crime against you, you can never be made completely whole. There might be some cases where you basically are made. Like if someone steals $10 out of your pocket, you can recover that $10. You got the $10
plus interest.
But you've got, I mean, there is some emotional trauma associated with that, and maybe the judge will say that it's that's worth another $2 in pain and suffering from that. So you get $12 in restitution from the criminal. So it's, I don't know if we want to get into why restitution, why getting paid money is the best way to provide restitution. But even if we just accept it for that, I mean, it's probably the best thing we can do, is that because money is a kind of a fungible thing that you can kind of do a lot with. So that's kind of the I don't know, and a very agreeable thing among society that you get money and that's your way of doing whatever you need to. So if helping you get better is to, I don't know, go on vacation somewhere after you got a crime against you and you can put the money towards that, that's great. But you don't want to have just like this one thing for everyone. So money's kind of the thing that allows people to do whatever they want. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I mean, that's sure.
Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, money. Yeah, I mean, there could be. What if the victim doesn't want money? What if the victim? I mean, it could be, and it really could be anything, right?
Because even if the victim doesn't want money, money is very saleable, so he can exchange it for whatever he wants pretty quickly, assuming that what he wants is around the value of the restitution that he receives.
Right.
So that's why money is the best.
Yep.
Where was I going to go from there?
I don't know. Money.
Yeah, just being made whole. I mean, it's difficult. That's the unfortunate nature of it. That's why crime is so bad, because you're destroying a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's not just physical property. There's psychic utility that you're destroying. So it's very difficult to put a price on that. And, also, if you murder someone, obviously there's no amount of money that's going to bring a person back. So it's kind of, there's no silver bullet. There's no perfect way to deal with that. But we can have ways that are better than others. So we look at the current system. And how does the current system deal with, just looking at the victim side right now? I guess we'll take it there. What happens when you get a crime committed against you in today's society?
You're asking me.
You.
All right. Well, so there's civil and criminal court, right? So if you commit a crime, what they say is a crime against the state, you get tried in a state court or federal court, and that would be criminal charges where you go to prison. There's also civil where you can get money.
Right.
And I believe I'm no legal expert here, obviously, but it's like with OJ, he got tried in criminal court for murder, which he was acquitted, but then was found responsible in a civil. So he owed the families of his victims, or of the victims, some money,
right,
or lots of money in his case.
Do you have to have a civil trial to have a settlement?
I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think. I don't know. We would need someone to come and answer that one.
Okay. So part of it is that, like, so the state assumes that you need to be locked in a cage probably for a while.
Right. You committed a crime. You need to be punished.
And that's because they say that the crime is not just committed against the victim.
Right. It's all of society. You're damaging society.
But that's absurd. I mean,
so you think?
Why do I care if? Well, not that I don't care, but how does it affect me? How does it appreciably affect me if some guy in Washington State picks the pocket of some guy out there?
Right. No, it doesn't, obviously. But they do have county courts, right, and state courts, and they have federal courts.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, I would assume if you commit a federal crime, they're saying that's a crime against the people of the United States, right? Like
Right.
the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
Seems kind of absurd that there's so many federal drug crimes because, like you said, if someone was, say, indicted or charged with a conspiracy to distribute in Washington State, how does that affect you in Pennsylvania?
I don't know. Well, here's one.
I have no idea.
Here's a good one too. I saw this on the local news was around the story recently. I don't know much about it, but there's a woman that was very wealthy, and she was committing insurance fraud.
Uh-huh.
Finally caught her, and she's going on trial or whatever. And they were interviewing people that live nearby, and I guess kind of knew her or knew of her. And there are people saying like, "Oh yeah, I hope they really throw the book at her and lock her up, and she pays for her crimes." It's like, okay, if she committed insurance fraud, she committed a crime, but why do these people care? Were they the carriers of the insurance policy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I really don't get, that people seem to get very like hungry to see someone go down.
And that's one of the things that we need to change in order to have what we're going to later talk about in a how to deal with crime in a libertarian society, is that, and a lot of libertarians do this. It's not just statists. It's a lot. Unfortunately, high number of libertarians fall into this bloodlust for wanting to see criminals pay for their crimes,
like suffer for their crimes, right?
Yeah, not just pay restitution, but like really have something terrible happen to them. And that's to bring in an economic principle behind that. It's very high time preference, because, well, first of all, to think about, you hear someone commits a crime and to think that, oh, I want this person to suffer physically or mentally or emotionally, before thinking, oh, he better try to make whole whoever he committed the crime against. I mean, you're just not helping to, because that's the point of restitution. All right, you committed a crime, you stole, you destroyed some wealth or something, so you want the person to be restored so that they can continue is unharmed as possible with their productivity. So if you steal my car, I mean, that really hurts my ability to get to work every day. And if I got to buy a new car, I mean, that doesn't let me do things with my money that would have been more productive. It's the same thing. It's like the broken window fallacy. It's the same idea there. So you want to be made whole so that I don't have to go through that, all those economic problems. So to just care about suffering and just really wanting to hurt this criminal doesn't help society in the long run, just economically like that. Not to mention that I just don't think it's a healthy way to go about living in the world.
Right.
You enjoy seeing people suffer, even though they're not nice guys. So we need this idea that like punishment isn't necessarily what we're trying to go after with dealing with crime. You really need to focus on the idea of making the victim whole.
Yeah, well, that's one of the first things. So yeah, you're talking about how to handle the crime after the crime happens, right? One of the things I like to talk to people about is really what is a crime, because in the United States, I believe it's the highest per capita incarceration rate in the world. If not, it's in the top 2 or 3.
No, I'm pretty sure it is the highest.
Yeah. So, and most Americans, or most people, at least I talk about, say we live in a pretty safe country, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll credit prisons for that. But really, when we go through our lives every day, we're going to stores, we're driving, people get along just fine. You're not typically dodging bullets on your way to work. or seeing fistfights all over the streets. So really, what is a crime, right? If the government ceased to exist, there'd be no more drug laws, obviously. Which a lot of crime, even violent crime, comes from the black market for drugs. So when you talk about however many hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of prisoners we have in the United States right now, like what will we do with them? Well, a good portion of them aren't going to be criminals in a free society. Now, some of them will, I'm sure. But right off the bat, there's going to be less crimes that exist. And so then people will be like, well, why is that good? You don't want drug dealers on the streets, but we could get into that discussion. But the short answer is you could buy drugs from a reputable dealer who has a consistent product because they're allowed to make it. They're allowed to try different things, test purity, tell you the strengths, have the product you want and need. And so drugs will be a lot safer. And so since they're legal, you now have legitimate protection. So you don't have to be on a street corner with a gun. You're not fighting the battles for your territories, all the whole slew of crimes that come along with the drug trade on the black market would just be gone almost immediately. Yep. So right off the bat, there's going to be fewer criminals than we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to warp into our libertarian society and
yeah, let's go there.
Okay, so I'll set this up. We're in our libertarian society, no government, everything's private, and Slappy, you get mugged, and a guy steals your wallet or steals $100 out of your wallet and beats you up pretty good too.
Well, I just call Carr and tell him to give me my money back.
Yeah. And, yeah, well, Carr would just rough you up like that?
He probably had a weapon. Really strong one.
All right, well,
hit me over the back of the head. I don't know.
All right.
So I never saw it coming.
Yeah, he beat you up pretty good, and so he's got $100 from you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, this might be, let's just say this is out of the scope right now for the moment. We have our private defense agencies, our private police forces that we use, that everyone subscribes to. So you've got yours and Carr's got his. Okay.
And, so my first question is, where did this crime take place?
Let's say it was just outside your house.
Okay.
Like on the street. In your neighborhood.
Sure, I'm walking down the street or whatever.
In your neighborhood, you're listening to a podcast or something, and that's why, because you had headphones in.
Headphones in. He snuck up behind me, hits me over the back of the head.
So your insurance agency will say, "Well, you had headphones in, you weren't paying attention, so it's on you."
We're not paying that claim. Yeah.
So so you have insurance,
but I saved a lot of money on the premium.
It's true. You have insurance for this type of thing, and so does Carr. So you call your police service and you say, "Hey, this guy, Carr Campit," and we're simplifying this for a little bit to just say that, hey, we
know who the guy is.
Yeah,
I mean, because if not, then I assume like you said, we have insurance company for this. Obviously, they want to prevent fraud, so they want to prevent me making a fraudulent claim to get money out of them. So they're going to want to see some kind of evidence of this crime. Since Carr had a pretty heavy duty weapon to try to stop me, maybe I went to the hospital. Maybe it's on a private street and they have security, so they have cameras, or who knows what. They investigate and find out that, yes, I did legitimately get jumped. They're going to do a little research into that, much like, similar to what I assume the cops would do today. They're not just going to, well, maybe they do just write down a report and let it sit there, but they don't have a profit incentive to do anything else. So, where the insurance company does.
Yeah. But really, it would just be kind of the sobbing tears when you call them up to make a claim would be enough for them. Yeah, okay, this guy got a little bit roughed up apparently.
Yeah, and maybe it's that. Maybe it is. Who knows? Yeah. But I'm just saying that they want to prevent fraud, so they're going to make sure it's a legitimate claim.
So I don't know how this would work exactly, But I would imagine that this is why you have insurance. It's just like if you had car insurance, if you get into an accident and it's a hit and run.
Yeah, they have ways to solve it.
Right. Or they'll just up front, they're going to say, all right, Slappy, you lost $100 from this mugging. Here's $100. And I don't know if they would figure out some additional pain and suffering that would need you. I mean, if he hurt you so bad that he broke your arm, that would probably be part of the coverage.
Right.
And then so what happens now is the insurance. Okay, so let's say after all your pain and suffering, it's now $150 that the insurance determines that you're owed. Or we'll just go with it this way because I think this is more interesting because we could just say, I guess the alternative we could say is that when you go straight to court, all right, you stole $100, and if you find you guilty, then the judge would also determine that your the pain and suffering would be worth another $50. But I think the insurance way is a little bit more interesting and also would lead to more standardization and better ways of determining.
Yeah, we can get to courts later when we talk about cars insurance company fighting it or something. Yeah. We can go to arbitration.
Right. So your insurance company determines that it's worth $150. So they're out $150. So they just paid you. And they are saying, they're agreeing with you that what happened to you is no fault to you. So they also kind of don't really want to raise their rates for you. Because then it would make you maybe want to look at another carrier. Now, if you were at fault and did something stupid that caused it, then yeah, your rates would probably go up, just like car insurance. If they find out you're a bad driver, they're probably you're a higher risk for them, so they're gonna make you pay more. But so they're at $150, and you say you know the guy that did it, and so they find out. Go knock on Carr's door and say, hey, you owe us $150. And Carr says, well, no, I don't know who this Slappy guy is. I would never go on his podcast uninvited.
Or steal $100 from him.
Right. It's like, get away from me. And so they're not just going to, light him up with bullets or something at this point. They're going to go back and he's going to say, oh.
But what if Carr has a dog?
Yeah, well, obviously then they'll shoot it, especially if it's 9 pounds.
Right.
But Carr would say, okay, well, I don't even want to deal with you people. So here's the name of my insurance company and my police force. So, go talk to them because if I'm not going
I'm going to stop you right there. Because this is what comes up when I talk about these scenarios, right? Is someone will say, well, what if Carr just says, screw you, I'm not paying it. I'm not telling you who my insurance company is. I'm not paying it.
Oh, well, then they'll say, well, we have proof. We have pretty good proof that you're committed this crime. And they would probably, this is where arbitration would probably start coming into play, in that they would take it. There would be judges, there would be courts in our private society.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there still would be things like warrants.
Yeah, and I think there would be things like with your credit cards, and you have a credit report.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of envision something like that, where it's like if Carr has all these claims against him and he's refusing to pay and refusing to do anything, he's going to have a tough time getting loans, getting jobs,
right,
participating in society, and people are going to want their money from him, which is a likely scenario. Like, do you think that Carr would be that type of person in a free society?
Well, he's like that in the current society.
So why not?
So yeah, there would be, and I guess we'll get into, I don't know, maybe we could talk about it now. Why a judge would be allowed to look at a case and make a determination whether or not they think that your insurance company is justified to go tell Carr that he must pay.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. I one more just quick note on the credit thing is this is something like that's a way we kind of solve things today without having to use the courts. If you don't pay your bills, At least some of them. I don't know. You don't go to jail, as far as I know. There's no debtor's court. You just get a bad credit rating, and now your credit card rates go up. You can't get loans. There's even jobs that check your credit score when you're interviewing. So, and most people pay. I believe most people pay their bills. And part of the reason they pay their bills on time every month is because they want a good credit score, because that opens up more doors for you to do things in the future. It's a good incentive structure.
Yes. And that's the way you have to look. Like when you're trying to solve problems voluntarily and without use of force or government, always remember, keep it in the back of your head that economic promotions and demotions are very good incentives and disincentives for people. That a bad credit score and difficulty to get a loan, that would constitute an economic demotion, and that's not good for someone for the reasons that you just said.
Right. So anyway, it's almost like a personal credit score in a sense. Like if someone makes a bad claim against you and you don't pay it, might not hurt you. You probably want to get it settled. You probably want to go to arbitration because you want it off your record. You want to prove that you didn't do it, or maybe like we were talking about insurance companies, you have someone represent you that you get by paying your insurance, which would be a relatively low premium because most people aren't committing crimes on a daily basis. But I don't think that's a small thing, the credit score. I think that's big.
Yeah, I agree.
So
do you want to talk about the judge? Why the society would give the judge?
Well, first of all, one of the pushbacks I get on that. So you're going to tell me there's going to be private courts, as if we don't already have them today. But wouldn't just the richest guy, the guy who's paying the judge the most, always win because the judge wants to repeat business and wants to make more money?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, it's.
I would assume both parties would have. This is where, and again, insurance would be big, as they would have agreements set up, because part of being a good judge and attracting business is giving fair decisions.
Right.
And so if there's a judge giving bad decisions, no one's going to want to use that judge. So there's another incentive for them to be as fair as possible. Insurance companies would probably have things worked out where both sides agree to a third party arbitrator. Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, that would be a very short-sighted business model for a judge to just pick whoever the highest bidder is, because
there'd also, I imagine there would be some kind of appeals process as well.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, if one, it would kind of be fraud. Not kind of, it would be, because a judge would there's no way a judge would say, well, I'm just going to rule in favor of whoever has the most money.
Right.
So if you could bring a case against him and that he's committing fraud and that he just took money from you. But no, it would be short-sighted, because that could only work for a little bit, because even the rich guy, I mean, chances are the rich guys might have to go to court for another something else completely different, and who's to say he's going to have the biggest pocketbook at that point? So he doesn't. It might work out when he can dominate someone in court, but as soon as he's on more of a level playing field, that doesn't sound like such a great deal anymore. That, I could just pay off the judge. Well, now he might be going into a bidding war with the other guy to pay off this judge. And so now it's not nearly as lucrative as it was before. So there's an incentive to just kind of be like, to just lead a good life and not have to be in court to begin with. And also that if you do get put into court, that you want the judge to rule equitably, because most people, if someone goes to court, they probably believe that they're in the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want a judge that has fair decisions, because they believe that the judge is going to rule favorably towards them. But we kind of got ahead of ourselves there because, well, not really. So yeah, that kind of describes why it actually works out well, because that describes how you could have a judge give out a warrant for someone.
Yep.
Based on this scenario that we've laid out, because he does have a history of good, fair decisions. So he can look at this case and say, okay, you've got a case to bring against this Car Campit character. So he says, yeah, you have the court's permission to go knock on his door. And so that creates kind of the societal permission, if you will, that they can go try to get the money from Carr. So Carr says that, well, I refuse to give you any money. Well, he already had a pretty reputable judge say that, no, it looks like there's a case against him. So it's going to be difficult for him to get someone to go out on a limb and defend him, because there's a good chance that they're going to lose. But if Carr's not an idiot, he would say, hey, well, here's the number for my defense agency, my insurance company. Why don't you go take it up with them? And so that's what they do. Just like how car insurance works. Like I keep bringing up car insurance because it's a good foil for what we're talking about. Because it's very parallel.
Yeah, most times, like you're talking about, when you get in an accident, a lot of times your car insurance company, you don't even know what's going on in the background, but you get the guy you hit, you get his insurance, you get your insurance, you go make a claim, and they settle it.
It's the first thing you do without even thinking is exchange car insurance information.
And then you call your insurance company, they write you a check, or depending on the kind of policy you have, maybe you go to one of their mechanics and they send the money directly to them. Whatever the case is, they take care of it. And you don't know what goes on. But as far as you're concerned, you go, it's done. It's over. Great. My company took care of me. That's wonderful. And on the back end, they're doing things, talking to the other insurance company, figuring out who's at fault, going to arbitration, the whole deal. And you're not really bothered by it, typically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your insurance company gets with Carr's insurance company. Carr's insurance company says, hey, we reviewed all the evidence. We don't think Carr committed this crime against you. And so your insurance company says, well, we disagree with that. And so they go to war, right?
Yes, they put an army out, put tanks in the street, and fight each other.
Yep. So they decide they're going to go find a judge and be an arbiter over this. Now, I don't know that they would pick the same judge that gave the warrant, because I would imagine that Carr's representatives would believe that judge already has a bias against Carr. Even though he wasn't saying that Carr did it, he's saying that there's a reasonable case. It's reasonable to believe that Carr is the criminal here.
Yeah.
So they go to an arbitrator and they have court. And this is when both parties agree, both your insurance company and Carr's insurance company, and by extension you two, because that would be in your contract.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it has to go to arbitration, you're going to accept the outcome of the arbitration, unless I guess you could agree or try to take it to appeal it. But that's whatever. I don't think we need to get into appeals.
Yeah.
Because I think it would work similarly to the way it works now. So they go through the case. Everyone presents their evidence and everything, and it ends up being that Carr is found guilty. And do they sentence him to prison?
They probably should.
Right. Well, even before we get to there, that means...
Yeah, no, I was going to say we got to get to that point about the prisons, but
even before that means that your insurance company can get the $150 from Carr's insurance company.
Right. And so of course, and then what I think is, again, that like personal credit score, so there's a judgment against them. Who knows how the market will determine how long that stays on, or what kind of damage it does to your score. Like if you start out 100, maybe if you steal $100 from me, and of course car, in order to get $100 off me, would have to use weapons, like I said. So it'd probably be a big hit on his credit score.
Right.
You know, who knows what number it goes down. Maybe it goes down to 50. You know, he's a 50, and maybe 10 years from now it's back up, or 5 years, or who knows. It goes up as he goes through life without committing any more crimes to get back to that 100 or wherever. I think that would happen. I talked about this on other episodes about what we have today in the life insurance market is the Medical Information Bureau, the MIB, which no one really knows it exists. But whenever you apply for life insurance, you'll put on the application you're a smoker, or you know, you have diabetes, or whatever the case is. You get a code in the MIB, which is completely privately run. It's done by the insurance companies to kind of prevent fraud, and it works well. So if you know, it's a way for the insurance companies to kind of have a record on you. So you can't just go apply to a company and they decline you because you didn't put on the application that you have diabetes, and they found out you did. You get an MIB record. So if you go apply somewhere else, maybe their underwriter misses it, and they give you a policy based on whatever rates for someone who doesn't have diabetes. But in reality, you do. So it kind of prevents fraud. You know, they're not putting any statements of opinion on there. It's all your actual health. So I kind of see that transitioning over in some way, maybe.
And there's another point I want to make about the value that insurance companies have in this situation, because let's eliminate the insurance companies out of this for a second. And so you take Carr to court directly, and the judge rules that Carr is guilty, or the jury, whatever, however we.
But yeah, just a point. You in a market, you would have judges who specialize in certain things. So if in this case Carr jumps me, there's an arbitrator who really specializes in this type of cases. We know that they have a good reputation. They know how to handle this. We go there, or whatever the case is.
And it's also reasonable to think. I said jury not by accident, because I think there might be a case that you'd have professional jurors.
Sure.
That are good, and maybe it's better served to have, you know, a group of people make the decision instead of just one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason it's out there. So let's say that there's no insurance company, and you're taking Carr to court directly. So what happens if Carr after this says, "No, I disagree. I don't want to pay you"? Well, you kind of have the court's permission, basically, to go take, you know, what's yours. So there's an opportunity for violence there, is what I'm getting at. Violence that would be restorative, and so you can be made whole, but that's not a good situation. I mean, violence is expensive. It's not great for anyone. Even the person that ends up winning or is justified in using it, it still comes at a cost. So not only does the insurance, it's there to help make you whole right away, it also adds a layer of buffer against the need for violence, because it's already built into the policy that if you're convicted of your crime, then they're going to pay it out,
right?
And they'll try to make themselves whole from your acts by raising your rates, or maybe even dropping you, because they determine that you're too much of a risk to keep on, and losing that insurance would be very, very bad. Now I'm sure there would be other companies out there that would offer insurance, but it's not going to be great. Either the coverage is going to be not great, or it's going to be really expensive. So like we were saying earlier, it's that same economic incentives there that it really pays to be a good behaving member, a well-behaving member of society. So I don't know if you had anything else to say about that, because there's
no, go ahead.
Kind of stage of it. So let's say
let's get to the next stage.
Let's say that this crime that Carr committed was enough that it's like maybe we really don't want guys like Carr out in the street. And in a normal circumstances with the state monopoly on the justice system, that he would be thrown in prison. But we already kind of said that we don't want prisons in our free society, or at least not
the way they are today.
Yeah. So maybe get the mugged isn't the greatest example, but maybe it is. Maybe it's fine because maybe you're like really upset about it.
I am.
Yeah, and you're one of those high time preference people that want your pound of flesh too.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a situation where there's going to be revenge violence, or the potential for revenge violence out there. So how do you think that gets taken care of in our libertarian society?
I go track them down and beat the $150 out of them.
Yeah. So,
well, that would be like, let's just say that's what I was doing, right?
Right.
Well, Carr doesn't have his coverage, his protection, and realistically, I mean, let's say the company, there's a lot that goes into it, how much protection they would provide for him for this. It's probably going to make the most sense for Carr to pay it. He's had judgments against him, and now someone's out looking for him, and this will make it go away. It's probably best that he pays it and clears that off, his record or whatever. But he's really not doing that, and he's refusing to pay. And even though he did it, and like we said, we went through this whole process, and the judge decided he did it, and there's a whole lot of evidence that says he did it. So now his insurance company, did you say they dropped him?
No, they didn't necessarily drop him. Let's say he hasn't been dropped, but let's say that he quit his job a while ago and he can't afford the $150.
Yeah.
Or let's say that he can't afford whatever.
I mean,
like now his insurance company has lost money on him.
Just for the record, Carr, if you need $100, you can just ask.
Well, Bird's a pretty soft target, so go after him, and he's.
Yeah, you don't have to beat me up. And so, the reality in this situation, well, whatever. We're just going to run with it.
Yeah, let's say in this situation, he's committed a crime that's...
And now I want my revenge because he didn't pay me, he put me through all this. I was in the hospital. I want to...
Not only that, but let me... I said it a little bit. Let's say that he commits, because I said before that he could either be dropped by his insurance company or maybe they'll raise the premiums on him. Let's say he committed a crime where it was enough money that his insurance company had to spend on his behalf that they have to raise the rates to a point that he can't afford necessarily. And they don't want to just drop him because then they're going to be out a lot of money.
Right.
So, and also, you're pretty unhappy with him. So, what do you think would be what could a solution be to this problem?
Yeah,
it doesn't sound good right now.
Yeah, so he owes a lot of people money here. He owes a lot of money, and someone's out to get him. Well,
let's also say this, because if you get to Carr and you beat him up, then. Now he's hurt to the point now he can't even be productive economically.
Right, and there's judgments against him, and yeah.
He's not in a very good spot to get employment now that he's got this criminal record.
Right. So where we talk about the prisons in a free society, as I like, and I think maybe this is where you're going, but what Bob Murphy lays out. And that there would be businesses that are almost like a hotel. You can come and go as you please. It's almost like there's going to be a lot of security because they want to protect the people in there. They're for people who can't get protection. And they can go in there and they can work, do whatever to pay off their debts. And it's easy to get out of. If you want to leave, you can, but it's hard to get into. They have a lot of security there to protect the people in there that are paying off their debts, essentially.
Right. So this, I'll have this linked in the show notes page. It's "Prisons in a Free Society" by Robert Murphy. It's a great video. Highly recommend that. But yeah, it creates a couple solutions to kind of everything that we said by this. One, it could be in your contract with the insurance company that if you commit a crime that is that they won't drop your coverage, but they'll say, hey, you've committed a bad enough crime that we don't want to spend the money to have to always be having security around you to guard you from someone, knocking you off because let's say you murdered someone. You have a huge target on your back, and it would be very expensive for them to always have security around you. So they'll say, hey, if you commit murder, then there's a cooling off period that's going to be decided for cooling off the other parties so that they're kind of not forget about you, but at least think that, all right, well.
And just, one thing for murder, it would probably be a really big price tag, right? Mm-hmm. Like you got to pay probably a real lot of money for the murder. So you're either on the run from people, you can't get work, can't get loans, can't get housing because you have this murder on your record. So you can go into these private prisons. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, and also it helps you pay. It could help you pay restitution.
Right, and then you're doing productive work in these places, so you're providing something for society while paying off your debt, and you're protected.
Yeah, and also it's like with the current prison systems, it's all about revenge and all about these people are horrible, not even humans anymore, so we get to treat them really badly. I mean, prison's like it's an
awful place. It really is.
And so it also just makes me feel a lot better that if these are more like hotels and businesses where they're trying to protect you from the outside world and from other people inside.
And the people there, like you're going to be there working to pay off your debts or pay your restitution.
Right.
They want you to be a productive worker. Mm-hmm. The prison guards probably aren't going to be treating you poorly. Exactly. One, they want to attract people to their place because they want the work. Mm-hmm. I imagine it'd be cheaper labor. I don't know.
Who knows what?
You don't know. You don't know what it would be, right?
With the, with all the technology we have, there's so many people work remotely. They're not tied down to anything, and who knows? They might even offer job training programs in there.
Right.
So if you come in off the street and you're just someone never really had a job, you don't really have any skills, but you need to pay off a debt to someone for a crime you committed, then they might say, hey, well, you might have to stay here longer.
And so the point of that is that you're separated from society. Right. So the people who are worried that these dangerous people will be out in the streets, if they're out on the streets, they're at risk because there's been judgments against them. And so if someone does hurt them, there's really not much they can do. Or they can go in here for protection, in which case they're separate from society and they're repaying their debts. So,
and it also makes the situation where an innocent person gets convicted, it makes the consequences of that a lot less terrible. Now, it's not good that you'd have to be separated from society like that, but you're being treated a whole lot differently. Your environment's going to be a whole lot different. And maybe if your insurance company really believes that you didn't commit something wrong, maybe they send you, someplace, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows how they would do it. But there would be, that's what a market does, right?
So it's amazing because when we first started having this conversation, or when I first thought of it, and even when we first were talking about it, like half of these ideas that we were just talking about, like I didn't even think of, was only through this conversation that we kind of sparked up some other consequences of how this arrangement would work, and these consequences are for the better. These little things, when you solve this one problem, it creates this kind of rippling that solves a lot of other problems too that you wouldn't think about. So, and this is just two of us kind of
and when
having a conversation on a podcast. Can you imagine when there's actual markets and
when there's millions of people thinking about this and trying to solve this problem, certainly would be better than anything we could come up with.
Yeah.
But these are ideas, and they're based on, in reality, on things that we see today. There's reason to think something, whether this exactly happened or something similar, my guess is something even better would happen. Right. Just like when you look at a lot of things like airlines or cell phones, or no one imagined cell phones would, like when I had my Nokia, I was playing Snake on my Nokia back in the day, did not even envision a touchscreen, let alone an iPhone with the entire internet and every book I ever wanted. Like that wasn't even, there's probably someone who thought that was the future. But Paul Krugman famously thought the internet would have about as much impact on the economy as the fax machine did. So he was a smart guy. He couldn't see it coming. Most people can't. It just comes and gets better than you expected it to be. And that's kind of how I think that would play out if you have a society, that respects property rights.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting. I mean, all this stuff is very fat, and I really suggest going and listening to the Bob Murphy talk.
Absolutely.
Also, to maybe if you're having a hard time thinking about that it shouldn't be about revenge and everything, I've also linked the book "Resist Not Evil" by Clarence Darrow. That was a book that really was a turning point for me with how I thought about criminals. So I highly recommend that book. And then also I have linked our episode 110. How would fraud be handled in a libertarian society? We're talking about, I think we talked about Bernie Madoff and Michael Vick. About how,
oh yeah.
That, like maybe there's certain crimes that don't deserve prison time, but you just get demoted, and so you become a little bit riskier. But there are certain people that commit crimes that they're still can bring a lot of value, and you don't just want to destroy that value by throwing them in a cage for 15, 10, however many years.
Right.
But they would, in order to trust a guy like Bernie Madoff or to risk Bernie screwing you over if he does something, that he's got to charge a lot less for his services. So he comes at a discount for someone willing to take a risk. And if he ends up being a criminal again, well, then they didn't really spend that much on him. They took a flyer on him and it didn't work out. But if he does turn around, then hey, they can make out really well, and he can build himself back up. So there's a ton of parallels out for all this kind of stuff. So I think we covered kind of soup to nuts.
Yeah, it's a good overview.
Yeah, I mean there could be something where they determine that if Carr won the case.
Yeah, we could have got into that.
There might be as well. Carr doesn't. There's nothing else that goes on. Maybe they. And I'm sure the insurance companies have ways.
Well, you want to protect against frivolous lawsuits, right? Like I don't want to just. No one would want me. So that would probably go on my record that I brought a case that I failed at. Mm-hmm. It probably wouldn't be as damaging as someone actually committing the crime. But if this is something I'm doing every day, my score is going to go way down.
Right. Yep. And I would imagine that your insurance company would put some effort into it on the front end to make sure.
Of course, before they bring it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of.
Because then they're
losing money if they're constantly defending me.
Right. And a lot of this stuff we're talking about, because we're just kind of talking off from the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
A lot of these arrangements would already be made. Like this would be part of your contract.
And people would generally know how this. I mean, this would be society. Like today, most people don't really think about it. It's like you sold drugs, you go to jail.
Right.
And that's kind of how we see this going. You commit a crime, this is how it's handled.
Yep. So your mugging days are over once we
are numbered.
Yeah, got a Libertarian Society.
Yeah.
All right, you want to do the free market success story?
Yeah, you got one?
So this one's a little bit different because we had one of our friends, Denver Libertarian, sent me something. He just wrote an article, and it is called "A Brewing Battle: Home Brewing Outside of the Home," and that is linked on the show notes page at mcflugel.com/129. So he's talking about something that's going on in, I think it's in Denver, but in Colorado. Yeah, I assume so. But local to him, there's a brewery that came up with this idea, since a lot of the beer brewing laws are kind of weird and stupid, and it's very difficult.
Not an argument.
Yeah. It's very difficult to be a home brewer and try to sell your beer, especially if you want to do it at any sort of scale. And so they figured out this way, and also with being small breweries, that they have like weird rules about what your brewing equipment is and where it can be located. I think you have to have the brewing operation on the premises. So it makes it creates a lot of hassles and everything for these people, especially the smaller scale stuff, whether it's home brewing or just small microbreweries.
Microbrewery.
So what this company did was that they have this contest where they bring in a bunch of home brewers and allow them to use their equipment to brew beer. And then there's different stages, almost like a playoff, I guess, that eventually one guy wins. And I think they kind of sell his beer
right
at this place. So it's a pretty clever way. And this, I said it before, I forget what I think it was on this podcast, but like the free market, it's like a virus that like you can't stop. It's like a zombie virus. You can't stop it because people are always trying to figure out ways to improve their lives and make their lives better, and by extension bring values to society. So even with all these onerous regulations and government making stupid laws preventing you from doing the stuff you want to do, people still find ways, and it's incredible. So that's why it would be great if people were actually unleashed from all the tethers from the government and be able to put all this cleverness to more productive uses instead of just trying to go around red tape. But it's still amazing that despite all the red tape and regulations, that they're still able to figure out ways to benefit everyone. So go on the show notes page and check out this story. It's a good read. And I want to thank the Denver Libertarian for sending that to us. Anybody else, more than welcome to send us ideas for free market success stories or even episode topics.
Yeah, we have a couple.
Yeah. So with that, again, for the millionth time, show notes page, mcflugel.com/129. We've got links to some of the things we talked about, as well as go check out libertymugs.com. I don't know that we have any free market justice system mugs out there.
But maybe we should get some.
Maybe we should. I support private courts. I'm sure that will be a great seller.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, there's only one way to. You know what? People out there, prove me wrong. When I go put that mug out, because I didn't think it would really sell, go and prove me wrong. I'll buy a bunch of them.
Yeah. Buy multiple.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Peace.